Welcome to Green Farm, a lovely little farmhouse in the Cheshire countryside. I've been able to trace the history of the farm back to 1851, and in 1851 on the census there is a Thomas Bateman and his family at the farm. Thomas is aged 50 and he is a farmer. His wife is named Anne and she is 43 years of age. They have 7 children: Elizabeth S, aged 15, Sarah Ann, aged 13, John, aged 11, Mary Ellen, aged 10, Thomas, aged 8, Francis, aged 4, and Henrietta, who is 1. There are 3 servants: Mary Harding, aged 23, who is a house servant, Joseph Arrowsmith, aged 26, and he is a farm servant, and 47-year-old John Meller, who is also a farm servant. Thomas Bateman was one of the most influential laymen in the early years of the primitive Methodist Church. Thomas was born on the 29th of October 1799 at the settlement of Frith near Wrenbury in Cheshire. His parents were John, a farmer and land surveyor, and Elizabeth Bateman. Thomas was baptised on the 1st of January 1800 at Wrenbury Parish Church. In his early years he attended both the Anglican Church and Fadderley Wesleyan Methodist Chapel on an occasional basis. Later, both the Anglicans and Methodists courted him to become a clergyman, but their offers were declined. Thomas came under the influence of the preaching of John Wedgwood in 1819 during his mission to Cheshire. Having declined an invitation to attend John Wedgwood's service at Bulkley, Thomas was influenced by those who had attended. Through his friend George Taylor, Thomas was gradually drawn into the primitive fold, attending class meetings for some time before committing to membership, and again, when started preaching, it was some time before he allowed his name to appear on the plan. However, once committed, he preached regularly for over 50 years. During his first 12 years as a local preacher, he did not miss one Sunday, often walking up to 40 miles to complete his appointments. Thomas was a farmer and later a land surveyor. The 1851 census reveals that he farmed 165 acres and employed 4 labourers and 1 boy. He was also trustee and treasurer to many charities in his native parish of Wrenbury. Thomas also helped to build chapels. The primitive Methodist chapel in Welsh Row, Nantwich, built in 1840, now closed, is attributed to him. Thomas married Anne Salmon on the 20th of June 1833 at Bothamley Parish Church. Anne was born about 1807 in Bothamley, Cheshire, and died in 1885. Anne's cause of death was bronchitis. She was 77. Once retired, Thomas continued to live on the farm with his elder son John taking over as the farmer. The younger son, Thomas Salmon Bateman, became a primitive Methodist minister. Thomas became a deed poll member in 1851. He was one of the few laymen to become president of conference in 1857 and again in 1867. In all, he served his church in almost every representative capacity possible to a layman. Thomas died at home on the 2nd of February 1897. His cause of death on his death certificate is old age. He was aged 97. He is listed as simply a retired farmer. There is a memorial garden at Chorley near Wrenbury where a granite obelisk stands in memorial to Thomas. It is inscribed, "In memory of Thomas Bateman of Chorley, an associate of Hugh Bourne and one of the fathers of the primitive Methodist connection." His son, Thomas Salmon Bateman, was born on the 4th of November 1842 in Chorley near Wrenbury. Thomas was converted early in his life and was speaking in public when aged 14. His obituary records that Thomas was a man of strong convictions and deep sincerity, loyal to duty, generous and sympathetic, ever the Christian gentleman, and worthy of the honoured name he bore. He had exceptional business qualities, a clear judgment, a shrewd appreciation of men and things. As a preacher, he was highly esteemed. All his wide reading he made to contribute to the efficiency of his ministry. He stood in the old paths. He faithfully declared the great doctrines of the evangelical faith. Thomas served as District Building Committee Secretary for many years whilst residing at Dudley. Thomas died on the 2nd of April 1903, aged 60, at Banbury. His cause of death was chronic cardiac disease and gangrene of his foot. He is listed as a Primitive Methodist minister. For some reason I can't find the farm on the 1861 census, but in 1871 Thomas's son John is now running the farm. He is aged 32 and described as a farmer of 114 acres, employing 3 men and 1 boy. His wife is named Anne and she is 25. They have 1 child, a son named Lawrence who is 1 year old. His mother Anne is with them and she is now aged 64. His father Thomas is staying in Chester with his minister son Thomas. They have 5 servants. John Mellor is still working for them. He is now 67 and a farm servant. John Cooper, aged 15, and he is a cowboy. Emma Price, aged 17, and she is a kitchen maid. Mary Edge, aged 16, and she is a housemaid. And 12-year-old Sarah Wilkinson, who is a nursemaid. John's wife Anne died in 1928, as this article from the Crewe Chronicle, dated the 20th of October 1928, describes. Funeral of Mrs. Bateman, daughter-in-law of noted Primitive Methodist. The funeral took place on Tuesday afternoon in the little burying ground of Chorley Chapel, around which gather so many memories of the pioneer days of Primitive Methodism in Cheshire, of Mrs. Bateman, widow of Mr. John Bateman, formerly of Chorley Farm. Mrs. Bateman was the daughter-in-law of Mr. Thomas Bateman of Chorley, one of the first leaders of the Primitive Methodist movement in Cheshire. Mrs. Bateman herself, who had survived her husband for some years, shared the enthusiasm of her father-in-law for the Primitive Methodist cause, and her interest in Chorley Chapel and in Welch Row Chapel, where Thomas Bateman, often as a local preacher, inspired the fervour of Primitive Methodists long ago, was maintained until the end. Mrs. Bateman's death occurred after an illness which began about 12 months ago and was due to the natural causes which attend upon the attainment of a considerable age. On Tuesday, before the cortege left Mrs. Bateman's home in Welch Row, Nantwich, where she had lived for many years, the Primitive Methodist minister conducted a brief service, and he, with a Mr. James Sadler, conducted the service at Chorley Hall, which preceded the service of interment. The interment took place in the Bateman vault. Anne died aged 84 of bronchitis and senile decay. By 1881 there is a new family at Green Farm. The head is named Edward Bostock. He is aged 52 and a farmer of 82 acres. His wife is named Hannah and she is 50 years old. They have 2 sons, Peter, aged 19, and William, aged 18, and a 17-year-old general servant named Alice Brown. Moving on to 1891, and Edward is now 63 and still a farmer. His wife Hannah is 58. Their eldest son Peter is still living with them. He is now aged 26. There are 2 grandchildren living at the farm, Alice, aged 6, and Edward, aged 3. I believe these are Peter's children, but there is no mention of their mother. There is also a Mary Sant, who is 21 and a domestic servant. In 1901, Edward Bostock is 74 and still a farmer. He is also a widow. His son Peter is aged 39 and he has a wife living with him. She is named Ada and she is 34. They now have 5 children, Alice, aged 15, Edward F, aged 12, John W, aged 2, Annie, aged 7, and Peter, aged 4. There is an Ellen Davenport, who is 20 and a domestic servant, and an Eliza Hodkinson, who is 57 and a visitor. She is also listed as a widow, so she could possibly be Ada's mother. Moving on to 1911, and the eldest son Peter is running the farm. He is now aged 49. His wife Ada is 45. They have 5 children at home. Edward, who is 22 and he is working on the farm, Ernest, aged 9, Alice, aged 25 and she does dairy work on the farm, Annie, aged 17 and she also does dairy work, and 14-year-old Peter, who helps on the farm. Edward, their eldest son, passed away on the 2nd of March 1954, and this article from the Nantwich Chronicle, dated the 6th of March, gives more information. Ex-Chief Warden's death. The death occurred on Tuesday after a brief illness of Mr. Edward Foster Bostock of Bank Farm, Ridley, a well-known South Cheshire farmer and public worker. Mr. Bostock, who was 65, had farmed at Bank Farm for 33 years. The son of the late Mr. and Mrs. P. Bostock of Green Farm, he served in France with the Cheshire Yeomanry in the First World War and was wounded. In the last war, he was Chief Civil Defence Warden in the Ridley area. He was a member of the General and Social Committees of Bunbury branch of the British Legion. His wife, who survives him, was formerly Miss Parkinson, a member of a prominent Woolston farming family. He also leaves 2 sons and 3 daughters. The funeral will take place this Friday at the Bateman Memorial Chapel at Chorley. Edward died from peritonitis caused by cancer of the stomach. In 1921, Peter Bostock is now aged 59 and still a farmer. His wife Ada died in 1919. His youngest son Ernest is 20 and does general farm work, and his daughter Alice is now 35 and does home duties. There is also a Mary Faulkner, who is 20 and she is a domestic servant. Peter Bostock died aged 77 in 1939, as this article from the Chester Chronicle, dated the 7th of January 1939, describes. Century of farming on Cholmondeley Estate. Death of Mr. Peter Bostock, Chorley. The Chorley countryside loses a familiar figure by the death which occurred at his home on Monday at Chorley Green Farm of Mr. Peter Bostock. Mr. Bostock was the head of a family who had farmed at Chorley Green, which is a farm of 84 acres on the Cholmondeley Estate. He was born there. His father, the late Mr. Edward Bostock, farmed at the Green Farm before him, and father and son in successive occupation bridged 100 years of farming. Mr. Peter Bostock himself had occupied the farm for 50 years when he retired and was succeeded by a son some 12 years ago. He had been a widower since 1919. He leaves 3 sons and 2 daughters. He was one of the stalwarts of primitive Methodism of the Chorley district, noted for its association with Thomas Bateman, who was a pioneer of the movement in Cheshire. Mr. Bostock had been in failing health for about 3 years. The funeral took place at the Chorley Methodist Chapel on Friday afternoon. A service was conducted in the house by the Reverend Lees of Nantwich and Pastor Pashley of Bunbury. The hymn Rock of Ages was sung. The coffin was borne to the church on a farm lorry drawn by a 40-year-old horse, which was Mr. Bostock's favourite animal and one he drove regularly in the years before the war. At the church, the hymns included "Jesu, Lover of My Soul." Mrs. Bateman of Chorley was at the organ and rendered Handel's Largo as a voluntary. There was a large attendance of farming friends from a wide area. And finally, on the 1939 register, youngest son Ernest is running the farm. He is now aged 38 and listed as a dairy farmer. He has a wife named Ava who is 46 and she does unpaid domestic duties. They have a son named Dennis C who is aged 12 and at school. There is also a Jane Parry who is 18 and she is a domestic servant. There are also 2 other children listed as living at the farm. Ellen Fielding, aged 11, and John Moran, aged 8. They are listed as at school, so could they be evacuees? Ernest is still running the farm during the 1940s, but sadly in 1943 Ernest was to lose his brother Peter at a fairly young age. This article from the Winsford Chronicle, dated the 13th February 1943, goes into more detail. Death of Mr. Peter Bostock, cheesemaker and pig breeder. The funeral of Mr. Peter Bostock, aged 46, of the Pitts, Cuddington, Malpas, took place at Acton on Tuesday. He was the second son of the late Mr. and Mrs. Peter Bostock of Green Farm, Chorley, a farm now carried on by his brother, Mr. Ernest Bostock. At one time, Mr. Bostock was a noted Cheshire cheesemaker and had won many prizes. He was also a successful pig breeder and exhibitor, and with his Cuddington pedigree herd of large whites, gained many show awards. His first wife was formerly Miss Hull of Edelston Farm, and his second wife, by whom he is survived, was formerly Miss Davidson of Neston. There are 2 children. The funeral service in Acton Parish Church was conducted by the vicar, the Reverend Parry Williams, who officiated at the graveside. Peter died at the Royal Infirmary in Chester from an acute intestinal obstruction caused by a strangulated umbilical hernia. In 1965, Peter's brother Ernest died, as this article from the Nantwich Chronicle dated the 24th of July describes. Death of Mr. Ernest Bostock. The death occurred suddenly on Saturday at the age of 64 of Mr. Ernest Bostock of Green Farm, Chorley, a well-known personality in South Cheshire, Methodism and in farming circles. Mr. Bostock was with his son in the farmyard when he collapsed and died. A post-mortem showed the death was from natural causes. Green Farm has been in the Bostock family for generations, and Mr. Bostock took it over on his own account from his father, the late Mr. Peter Bostock, in 1932. He farmed it for 30 years, building up a herd of pedigree Friesians. His only son, Dennis Bostock, succeeded him in 1962. He had a lifelong connection with the Bateman Memorial Chapel, where he had held various offices and was chapel steward and treasurer of the Sunday school. Mr. Bostock had been Chorley District Representative for the Nantwich branch of the National Farmers Union for many years, and was also local representative on the trustees of the Wrenbury Consolidated Charities. During the last war, he served as lieutenant in charge of the local Home Guard platoon. He married in 1925 and leaves a widow who has been ill for many years and 1 son. An article in the same paper, dated the 31st of July 1965, describes his funeral. Funeral of well-known Cheshire farmer. The Bateman Memorial Methodist Chapel was filled to overflowing with mourners at the funeral on Wednesday last week of Mr. Ernest Bostock, aged 64, of Green Farm, whose death was reported in last week's Chronicle. Mr. Bostock was a devoted worker for the chapel and a well-known farmer. The mourners walked down the lane behind the cortege from the farm to the chapel, where the service was conducted by the Reverend Frank Sutton, with Mr. Roger Mitchell at the organ. Interment followed in the churchyard. On the 16th of December 1965, the Crewe Chronicle published the following article. Mr. Ernest Bostock of Green Farm, retired farmer, who died on the 17th of July, left £26,079.09. That's equivalent to £459,472.97 in today's money. He left £200 or £3,523 to Bateman Memorial Chapel, £250 equal to £4,404 to his former housekeeper, Mrs. Annie Davis, and the remainder of his property variously to his son Dennis, daughter-in-law Hilda and grandchildren. Probate has been granted to his son, Mr. Dennis C. Bostock, of the same address, and Mr. Robert D. Durrard, solicitor of Nantwich. So, we know that Ernest's son Dennis was running the farm in 1965 and continued to do so for a good few years after. An article from the Crewe Chronicle, dated 17th of July 1969, tells of an unusual reunion for Dennis. Czech revisits Cheshire friends. Looking forward to a holiday in sunny Las Palmas in the Canary Islands are a local farmer, Mr. Dennis Bostock, and his family. A week ago, such a trip was far from his thoughts, but a visit from a man Mr. Bostock had not seen for 29 years changed all that. During the last war, when several thousand Czechoslovakian servicemen were camped on the Chumley Park estate, Mr. Bostock and his family made friends with a Czech officer, Lieutenant John Franner. Mr. Bostock told the Chronicle, "We had written to each other from time to time over the years, but one day last week John telephoned to say he was in this country and was calling to see us. Naturally, we were delighted. He was in Liverpool and had a day spare before travelling to London on business. He spent the night with us and we were able to spend a few hours looking around the Chumley estate where we had first met. John now lives in Las Palmas and he insisted that we went to visit him. We won't be able to go this year, but as soon as we can, we will certainly make the trip. John always said he would come and see us again, and we believed he would. But when the call came out of the blue, it was still a shock. But we had a marvellous time talking over old times. Now we can hardly wait to go out to Las Palmas to see John and his wife and daughter." I wonder if they managed to make that trip. I really hope so. Dennis died in 1999, as this article from the Crewe Chronicle, dated December the 17th, describes. Mr. D.C. Bostock. A service of thanksgiving took place on November the 24th at St. Boniface Parish Church, Bunbury, followed by cremation at Chester and interment of the ashes at Chorley Cemetery of Dennis Clifford Bostock of Bunbury, who died on November the 17th, aged 72. Mr. Bostock had lived in Bunbury for a short period of time. He was the son of the late Ernest and Ava Bostock of Green Farm. He farmed there until his retirement. In his youth, Mr. Bostock was involved in running Wrenbury Young Farmers Club and Beeston Gun Club. He established the Chore Green herd of British Frisian cattle, and he had considerable success showing at county shows around the country. In 1961, he married Mary Nicholas of Bickerton. They had 2 sons, Nicholas and David. Dennis retired from farming in 1985, and the farm was put up for auction in March of the same year. A couple named Thomas and Lynn Brampton bought the farm, and they still own it today. I don't know if they ever lived here, but the farm is up for auction as of May 2025. I do hope it can be renovated, as for such a little house, it has a huge history. Right, I'm just in this farm. It's called Green Farm. It's very nice. See, there used to be a big fireplace there. Got a room going off there. That looks like it was the front door. Got a staircase there. And another room going this way. So let's go and have a look this way. There's another door here. Big room here. This possibly was the kitchen. It's a big room, look. See all the old electrics up there. I think the cooker might have been here originally, because you've got a big switch there. All the paint's peeling off. Got another room through here. This was probably the sitting room or parlour. Big beams. Would have been another wood burner there probably. Look at the old beams. Right, so it's only small, so we're just got upstairs now. See what it's like up here. Oh my goodness, these are steep stairs. And there's the bathroom. Quite a big bathroom. It's up into the loft. Quite decent condition up here. There's the old water tank by the looks of it, where the boiler would have been. Got a nice view. Got a pub opposite, which is quite handy. Yeah. A few cobwebs, nothing too major. Out to the bathroom and across the landing. An old bedroom. Still got the furniture in it. Nice fireplace. Nice room. Got a nice view out onto the farm. Nice and quiet. Nice little village that it's in. See over to the pub. And then just through to this end room. Another big room. Big room. Another nice fireplace. Yeah, nice little farm cottage. Lovely. There's some outbuildings, so we'll go and have a look around those. But yeah, very nice. Nice big bedrooms. High ceilings. Oh, I've got some old stables or barns here. See if they open. Nope. The old staircase going up to the hayloft, I would imagine. Right, we've got a big, looks like a garage or something. Might have been a workshop. Just go and have a look. What are those? They're like generators or something? Not sure. All slates there. So there's loads of old cigarette machines there. I think these might be more cigarette machines in here. Look at them. Loads of them. Just old cigarette machines.